So the three infrastructure projects that I really want to get done in the next couple months are 1, fencing, 2, a big composting project, and 3, getting fruit trees in the ground. I'm down here at the goat barn and Flopsy is outside. I'm not sure what she thinks of the snow. We have this really small area here fenced in. That little area though is tiny compared to the pasture we have. So here we are at our big pasture. This is the main area that we want to fence. So the fencing that we want to use is either a 4x4 woven wire fence or a no-climb horse fence. Okay, now we're up at what I call the back pasture. And this is a pasture that hasn't been consistently bush hogged or grazed over the past years. So as you can see, it's kind of grown up. I'm hoping that we're able to put our permanent perimeter fence around this area as well. We think the goats are going to play an important part in actually getting this land kind of reclaimed. Even though this fencing is going to be a huge financial investment, we really feel like it'll be worth it. We don't want to have to worry about our goats if the power goes down, if our solar chargers fail. We just want that permanent fence up. It'll last for, you know, much of our lifetime if we do it right. All right, so that's fences. So next, let's talk about compost. I really want to have a great productive garden here this coming year. This garden area is about 60 by 90 feet. So about 5,400 square feet. And it's not really about the area you have to garden in, it's really about the area and about the productivity of your soil. If I wanted to add just 4 inches of compost or manure to this garden, that is 67 cubic yards. A cubic yard weighs about 1,000 pounds, so about 67,000 pounds of compost. 67,000 pounds? That's a crazy amount of compost. So how am I gonna get all this compost? I've actually recently just kind of been alerted to the danger of broadleaf herbicide. There's one called Graze On. So this broadleaf herbicide can come into your garden through manure, through hay from fields that have been sprayed, and even through straw. And the results of the herbicide are actually shriveling and stunted plant growth. This is not what you want in your garden. So I'm trying to think creatively, how can I get the maximum amount of soil amendment in this garden just in the next couple months? I really want to focus in on sawdust. There's a couple places around here where you can buy sawdust from sawmills, but there's also some places you can get it for free. Now, sawdust is extremely high in carbon. It's basically putting wood in your garden. And if you just dump sawdust in here, the carbon, the high level of carbon in the sawdust will actually sequester nitrogen that's already in the garden, and you can end up with poor growing plants for a year or more. So my idea is to try to compost as much sawdust I can with the nitrogen input of the chicken manure and with nitrogen input from food scraps. Another approach to enriching a garden area like this would be Eden gardening, where you actually just put your wood chips, put your sawdust and all your material down in your garden, and you let it break down slowly. This is really a multi-year process to optimum productivity, because all that carbon material has to break down on the underside against the soil to the point where you're actually getting a lot of nutrient benefit. So I do think this is a really great approach. I'm still looking for a free source of wood chips where they'll dump out here. I haven't really found that yet. But if I had those wood chips, I definitely would take a portion of the garden and I would just cover it heavily with wood chips. So in the next couple weeks, I'm hoping to start a big sawdust composting project. I don't know, how much time I will have to put into this, but I really do want to focus on this because I think it's a key to actually producing quite a bit of our food out here. So lastly, let's talk about apple trees. I love apples, and I have a dream of having enough apple trees to produce all of our apples for the year. The area I want to plant the trees in is in this strip right here. On this side is our big pasture, and on this side is our lawn. So there's this kind of dividing line. There's going to be a fence that runs down through here to fence our pasture, and I want to plant a row of apple trees. I know that I want to have a heavy emphasis on storage apples, but I don't want to neglect all the great non-storage varieties. A lot of these you can never find in a grocery store. You don't really see commercial apples that don't store well. So there's hundreds, actually there's thousands of varieties of apples out there. The vast majority of them you'll never taste unless you grow them yourself. So my plan is to have a row of either standard or semi-dwarf apple trees that run right here, and these are larger trees, and then to have a row in front of dwarf trees. And since this is south, the dwarf trees are shorter, they won't shade the larger trees, and I think that'll work well together. The reason why I want to plant dwarf trees and semi-dwarf or standard is that dwarf trees can actually provide fruit in like 1 to 2 years. One of my big criteria for apple trees I'm looking at is their inherent disease resistance. So there are many varieties, some of them old, and also many of the newer varieties, Liberty, Freedom, Enterprise, Wolf River. There's a whole bunch of them that have quite good disease resistance. So I've been reading and just, trying to cross those trees that have disease resistance with those trees that do well with the number of chill hours that we have here. You've heard it said, I'm sure, that the best time to plant an apple tree is 10 years ago, but the second best time is now. I would encourage you to consider planting a couple apple trees this year. You might say, well, I don't really have space to do that. I would say, you probably do. Look at dwarf apple trees. They need very little space. You could plant 6 of them easily in most backyards. I wanted to share a little quote out of this Fedco tree catalog. I love this catalog. So here it is. This is from Agriculture of Maine, 1874. If he can do no more, let no one fail to plant one tree and nourish and protect it. The petted tree will lean on him as the child looks to the parent for protection and sympathy, and it will return him a grateful and exceeding great reward. His children will disport themselves under the shadow of its branches and find health and solace in its fruit. And his children's children to the 4th generation, when perchance no other monument shall remain to declare the story of his life. So that wraps up my review of these 3 big projects I'm trying to work on. I hope you enjoyed that. And I promise we'll show you the details of what we're working on in the coming weeks and months. We'll bring you along in the process. That was another great day on the homestead. Y'all have a great day.